when you're having a busy domestic campaign, and I'm talking about across the world, leading up to a big tournament, with very little room in between for players to either recuperate or try and get themselves fit as if they have a minor injury. It's inevitable that you're going to have injuries, especially as we've had a packed schedule. Just looking at a list that I saw put out on social media, there are 7 players already that have been completely ruled out of the World Cup. One of those players is Diogo Jota from Liverpool, but you've also got Emil Smith-Rowe, N'Golo Kante, Paul Pogba, Jorginho Wijnaldum, Pedro Neto, and most recently as well, Timo Werner. There are huge doubts over a number of players involving Ben Chilwell, who we know got injured in midweek playing for Chelsea. There's Reece James, Kyle Walker, another England player, another right back that has a problem as well. And again, Son Heung-min, another that suffered an injury in midweek, that have all put their World Cup participation in doubt. First of all, what Klopp had to say, it makes absolute sense that it's inevitable that we are going to be going into this World Cup missing some big players.
Well, it was also inevitable if you're going to play a lot of games in October and it has been full foot down on the accelerator to get games in over this month. Yeah, you're going to get injuries, and it's probably inevitable also that once the tournament starts, there'll be injuries from players who are in the World Cup who then come back and are playing within what? Was it like 10 days?
Yeah,
something
very
like
little.
They're going to be playing their own domestic leagues. So there's going to be players that get injured out there as well. So there'll be managers that'll be nervous about losing certain individuals in World Cups. I didn't think any different. The only thing I wouldn't have been aware of, and this is where you could probably make an argument that there should have been way less games in October. There should have actually been some sort of compromise of, look, if we have this World Cup, let's not have an October with some teams 9 games in October. Let's try and get to like a 4 as the amount of games that you should play. Now, that wouldn't stop all the injuries, but when you see hamstrings and calves and groins and, you know, they could be very much based, especially hamstrings, on fatigue. Fatigue is the reason why people pull hamstrings. So... And they have been quite a number of them have been hamstrings.
Of course, the problem is that domestically, when you're looking at just the league, you could get around it. So there are some teams that won't have played as many games as those that are in those European Cup competitions. And that's the biggest problem that those teams have found, because we've had to cram in the Champions League group stage, the Europa League group stage, the Europa Conference group stage, because normally they're finished in December, but they had to be wrapped up before that so that when the teams come back and domestic matters resume, those competitions can resume into their knockout rounds as expected in the new year. But how now, when you're seeing now like someone like Ben Chilwell hobbling out of Stamford Bridge on crutches, we're still awaiting full confirmation on
he won't make it that.
Okay.
He won't make it.
Well, you're ruling him out, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and hope that it's not as bad. But there'll be now players looking on thinking, I don't want to be in that situation. Surely that's inevitable that they're going to be thinking that, because they all want to be playing at a World Cup. So how are they now going to approach these last few games? I know I've asked you this before, but I just think you're seeing more and more players now getting ruled out or certainly being doubtful.
Unfortunately, the mentality of a sports person is that you compete, and there are the odd few, because there would be someone who would be quite guilty of, I might not go quite as intense, or I might step off. If you're in a game and you're winning 4-0, you might be thinking, well, just see the game through. This one, I'm only 2 games away from them. We've won the game. But there'll be games that are hanging, the results hanging in the balance, and players are going to be committed, and you're going to get injuries. I just think, like Klopp said, it's inevitable. I'm not surprised that loads of people have got injured, but I don't see a way of resolving it, because players are not going to pull out of challenges. They're just not.
And I suppose because there's no warm-up matches for the international sides ahead of this World Cup, players need to play themselves into form. They need to be carrying some momentum with them going into Qatar. So as much as you might say, yes, they can take the foot off the gas, actually, a lot of them won't want to do that because they want to be at peak level.
Okay, so let's look at a very good player. Let's go Jack Grealish, okay?
Yeah.
And say, right, first of all, he's got to do well for City because they're in a lot of competitions and he's trying to get in the team, and he hasn't started all the games because, that's just him. You could go Foden at the football club. But he also might be fighting for his England place. So for him to get into the England team, he's going to have to be totally committed to his club football and his performance. So you can't go half-hearted into a performance and then expect to get into the England team. So you've got players in the leading nations who are fighting for their spot or trying to win it. Callum Wilson, who's fighting for Newcastle and playing brilliantly well, for them, he's trying to even get in the squad.
So it's that impressing, isn't it?
Yeah. So, and very few players are absolutely guaranteed to play. Very few.
Well, this is the thing as well, that Gareth Southgate names his squad on Thursday. So it's now between now and basically Wednesday, really, before Gareth finally nails down his 26-man squad. So there's one Premier League game. There's the League Cup as well, but teams will make changes and some of their bigger stars might not play in those. Then again, you might see an Ivan Toney, for example, against Gillingham, your former side,
yes,
who withdrawn in the League Cup.
I know. I was spoke in the week because someone who I do the school run with bumped into me. He's a big Gillingham fan. He went, "You make sure you mention to Natalie that the Gills are playing on Tuesday night at
Indeed.
Brentford."
Well, I'll be there. But my point I was going to say is, Ivan Toney suspended for this weekend, picked up a 5th yellow card against Wolves. So that rules him out of this Forest game today, which is a big miss for us. But it's also a big miss for him because that may have been his last opportunity on the Premier League stage. Yeah,
Gareth's not going to make a decision on how he does against Gillingham in the league.
What if he scores 10 goals? What if he scores 10 goals, Kath? No, I know what you mean, but
he's not.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, you'd have to be something absolutely worldly, outstanding to really make any kind of imprint on Gareth Southgate. This is it. This is the final weekend that players have to impress. What would be your what would be your message, I should say, to players then who are on that periphery that aren't yet sure if they're in the squad? What do they do to try and make sure, not just for Gareth Southgate, for anyone that's trying to get into their international side?
Do what you're meant to do. You're under contract for the club you're playing for. Give it your absolutely all and commitment, and then whatever happens after that, just leave it to fate. If you're unlucky and you get injured, I just don't think you can take the foot off the pedal. I think I know that I've done that, and many players I played with have. Well, the attitude is you play every game. And look, it's different when you have Summer World Cups because you go into the last game, you might have 3 weeks before the tournament starts, World Cup. So you even if you get a niggle or a slight problem, you can recover.
Yeah.
This is slightly different.